Got a new cycling computer or just want to make sure you have it set up right? Here are the crucial metrics that you need to have in front of you, and we'll show you how to get the best from your cycling computer. Stick with us. Whether you use a Wahoo, a Garmin, a Hammerhead, or any other kind of cycle computer, the initial setup of activity screens can be a daunting process on many devices, such as Garmin's here. This is commonly done on the device itself, whereas with a Wahoo, which I've also got here, this can only be done using the companion smartphone app. So the process for each device can be a little bit different, but we're going to cover the general things of what you want, not exactly how to do it. Before we dive into what data you might want to use, we might need to set up different profiles for different bikes. Some devices allow for multiple activity profiles, so if this is the case, the first thing you'll need to do is decide whether you're going to go for a one-size-fits-all approach or use alternative profiles depending on the type of ride. For example, I like to look at different information when riding indoors versus outdoors, or for road biking versus mountain biking, or I have slimmed down screens for races, just because my vision is mostly blurry. The number of data fields that you cram onto a single page will depend a lot on how big your device is and also how good your eyesight is. For example, I generally use quite a large bike computer, so I have 5, 6, 7 data fields, but some of the more elderly members of the club I go riding with, they go for 3, as it makes the fields bigger and easier to read. On a Wahoo, you can change the number of data fields on the fly, but you're still going to have a favored degree of zoom that shows just your favorite data. Realistically, using the maximum of 11 or so data fields on the main screen just isn't the way to go. The numbers will be tiny. It will take longer to read them, especially when your bike is like bouncing over rough ground and your eyes, well, they'll be looking down, they won't be looking ahead, and that's never a good thing. It's a completely personal preference, but we think a good starting place for those of you with decent eyesight or big computers is about 5 or 6 data fields. If you've got a medium-sized computer and decent eyesight, then 3 or 4 should do, and for anyone with a poor eyesight or a small computer, then go for like 2 or 3 data fields. Okay, the main screen. This is going to be the screen that you're going to look at for the majority of the ride, and it might be the only one that you want to set up if you're not too bothered about the data that much. So you need to fit as much useful information onto it as possible, whilst also making it easily readable. Let's take a look at some of the most popular data fields to include on this page. This one sounds self-explanatory, but it's easy to get confused between the timer, elapsed time, moving time, and all the other times, come to think of it. Unlike the elapsed time, the timer will only keep ticking whilst the activity is running. For example, if you turn on auto pause, then the timer will stop when you're not moving. We recommend this one as it shows the actual time that you've been pedaling for and not how long you've been sat outside the pub. Distance is simple. Decide whether you want it in kilometers or miles, and you're kind of good to go. Obviously now, only add heart rate if you're actually owning and using a heart rate monitor, whether you're doing specific training to heart rate zones or you just want to check out how much deeper you can actually go. This is a great one to have on your main screen. Just don't make it so big that your pesky riding buddies can kind of look over and see how much effort you're putting in. It's all in the mind, it's all in the games. Once again, only add this one if you actually use a power meter. Your current power reading it's a great way of measuring your effort, so it is useful to see at a glance. We recommend going for 3-second average power, as this gives a reliable reading. It's impacted less by kind of what part of the pedal stroke you happen to be at when you look down, and it's still short enough duration to know what you're actually currently doing. On Jamie's Wahoo, he adds this as his final data field on his main page, so that when he jumps on a bike without a power meter, he simply zooms down a click and doesn't have to stare at a blank value. That's quite clever. If you're using multiple activity profiles, then remember to not add this one to bikes where you don't have a power meter. Personally, this isn't a data field I use too much, but I know plenty of cyclists of all abilities that swear by it. Once again, choose your preference of kilometers per hour or miles per hour, and it can help you kind of stop surging on rides, or just, you know, it can add a bit of motivation, especially in a headwind. Another popular one, which I don't have but many riders do, is cadence. If you've got a bit of a habit of spinning your legs a bit slowly, and then putting cadence on your main screen can just give you a little kick up the backside to change gear and get those legs turning at a more efficient speed. So those are the common metrics for the main screen. Now, some devices like this Garmin allow you to have one be more prominent. I've got my 3-second power there, and you can sub in data that is relevant to your riding if the metrics that we've suggested just aren't useful to you. Next, let's take a look at some of the data fields which might not make it onto your main screen, but that you might still want to have a look at during the ride. Of course, if any of these feel really important, then feel free to bump them up to the main page. It's your computer after all, you know. First up is average speed. This is the distance that you've traveled divided by the moving time. Lots of people like to look at this later on in a ride and try to keep their speed above whatever kind of number they happen to choose. Next, I like to have the time of day data field. If you're a commuter or are particularly scared of your partner, then this one's probably worth putting on the main screen. Personally, I like to sit this next to this scheduled sunset, as on those lovely summer evening rides, I can then easily judge how much daylight I've got left for actual riding. For riders like me that love a bit of climbing, you may also want to add some stats such as the current gradient and or the elevation gained. Some devices allow for a whole specialist climbing page, so you could add them to that alongside a pretty elevation graph if that kind of takes your fancy. The Garmin and the Hammerhead, well, they both have the clever pages that will pop up with the profile of any significant climbs if you're following a route. It's an excellent way to pace a climb, but you can just turn it off if that sends you into a deep pit of despair. Another good one for the climbers is elevation gained. This is the cumulative height you've gained during a ride. So if you climb 10 meters and then descend 5 meters, your elevation gained will still be 10 meters. If you then go and ride up another 10-meter high hill, it'll now read 20 meters, and then you can play top trumps with your stats at the cafe. I often plan my routes, so I know how much climbing I've got to do, meaning that I can use the elevation gained number to tell me how much of the hard work I've already done. The final two fields I have on my second screen are the temperature, because I find it interesting to know how cold I am, and TSS, which is a training stress score. That one, well, it only really is useful if you either have a coach telling you what numbers to hit, or you geek out on Training Peaks or similar software. That's me. I also like to include some battery levels, for example my Di2 battery and the computer's battery. They last a long time between charges, so watching the numbers tick down is great if you also enjoy watching paint dry, but the key for me is having a quick reminder that I need to do a recharge, because I am brilliant at forgetting. If you're the proud owner of a power meter, then setting up some specific data fields is really going to help you to get the most out of your power meter on rides. We've already included a current or 3-second average power on the main screen, so let's discuss what else we can add. I actually like to give myself a whole page dedicated just to power. At the top of it, I'll have my 3-second average. I've also got my lap average power, and I'd recommend making it include zeros in this calculation. Otherwise, it's going to get skewed every time you freewheel, but the main thing here is to choose one and stick with it. Otherwise, you can't compare numbers between rides. I also have normalized power, which is very similar to Strava's weighted power calculation. It gives a value that is kind of representative of the entire activity at kind of like a constant wattage. Therefore, this is very useful if you do punchy rides where the intensity keeps changing. For example, like criterium racing, or if it's just really hilly. That's because the average power can be quite low during those rides, but you are still working hard. Alongside those two data fields, you might then also want to add some max power fields. These allow you to check out your peak power performances from the current ride before you click stop and end it. I always found these great for a bit of friendly competition with riding buddies, though I do rarely win a sprint competition. We just compare numbers on the way home. It's good fun. On Jamie's Wahoo, he has a max 3-second and 20-second power to judge his, I'd say, shoddy sprint performances, and then 1, 5, 20 and 60-minute power bests for longer efforts. So we've now got 2 or 3 different pages with loads of useful data on, and after that some people like to have a map screen permanently on, whereas others like it only to appear when they're following a route. I have a dedicated map page, though I only use it when I'm following a route or when I'm riding in a new area that I don't know so well. With newer devices, it's also possible to see some other riders' locations on the map. That's useful if you've got riding buddies that like to get lost a lot. At the bottom of my map screen, I've just got power and heart rate, just so that I can keep an eye on both of those. For gravel and off-road riders, we recommend keeping the map always on when not following a route, as it can actually really help you to locate the entrances to bridleways and tracks. The same can be said when riding abroad. A map can really help you safely navigate alpine descents by showing you where the tight corners are. It's genuinely incredibly handy, as some of those corners are completely blind. Oh, and if you want to check out some route inspiration, then make sure to check out our komoot pages. We'll pop a link in the description below. For smaller computers, we recommend not putting any additional map data fields on this map screen, as it will reduce the size of the map, making it harder to see and follow courses. It's also good to set up lap pages. Now, as the name suggests, they're quite good for doing laps. Laps are always useful, not just for going around in circles, but for breaking up an activity into distinct parts. For example, different efforts or intervals to and from your aunt's house, or a particular climb if you've got your eye on that. For the lap screen, we recommend making it quite similar to your main screen, but instead of the ride timer, it's going to be replaced with the lap timer. Make it nice and big so you know how long you've been doing that particular part of the ride for. If you're using a power meter, then you're likely going to want to put a lap average power on, and if not, then it's likely you'll want lap average heart rate instead, or maybe lap average speed, or something against which you can regulate your effort. If you regularly do lots of laps, then it might be useful to include a lap counter to keep track of how many you've actually done, although this does usually flash up on the screen at the end of each lap. I say that, but when it comes to potentially doing too many intervals, you can never honestly be too safe. Oh, and I said I've got a top tip, and that is to remember that if you find after a few rides that you're not using a data field, get rid of it. It sounds simple, but chopping and changing data fields is the only real way that you'll figure out what you really want to see in front of you. Getting the right bike computer for your riding is also really important, and with that in mind, Dave and I took a look at whether you should give your money to Garmin or Wahoo if you've got 250 quid to spend. The Hammerhead Karoo 2 is also a great option in my opinion, and Dave and I took a closer look at it for road.cc recommends. Hopefully this guide will give you a good basis of what data fields to use and save you a bit of a headache when setting up a new computer. But let us know which data fields are your favorite down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next time.